Hello and welcome to this special video edition of FEJ Kitchen Excellence Week. Today I am joined by Chris Playford, Market and Development Director at Foster Refrigeration, who's here to talk about some of the issues facing the subject of refrigeration in commercial kitchens. Welcome, Chris. It's fair to say that refrigeration accounts for quite a big chunk of the hardware that you find in a commercial kitchen. How strategically important is refrigeration to a well-run kitchen operation?
Hi Andrew, great to be here, thank you. Okay, so I think refrigeration is absolutely core to the operation of a kitchen. It's present pretty much all the way through the kitchen, right away from the cold room, bringing the raw ingredients in for bulk storage, right the way through to how we prep and store food locally. So it's got a role to play all the way through the kitchen. If you think of it as a manufacturing operation, and really think about food flow, it really ties in very nicely as a synergy. Where in a production line you wouldn't have things going backwards down the production line, and exactly the same principles apply in the kitchen. But making sure that equipment is reliable and well maintained is critical. Without great refrigeration, you don't make great food.
Sure.
So cooking is really important and it's pretty much the chef's part of the chef's key toolkit. But not having great ingredients going into that process renders that process pretty useless.
What advice would you give to operators in the process of specifying refrigeration? Are there any really key considerations that often get overlooked?
Yeah, I think firstly, just thinking about the menu and what type of business you are, I think is important, and making sure you're aligning the equipment choice to your type of business. So, for example, if you need, if your main meal type is pizza, then looking at things like preparation tables. If your main, if you're into larger scale catering, thinking about blast chilling. So at the end of the cycle, you could look at blast chilling food to be able to regen it later. So just trying to avoid wastage in the kitchen. Also within that process, just thinking about your HACCP requirements, so that you're not contaminated, you're not got cross contamination of cooked food and raw food. So you make sure you've got the facilities to really handle both.
I think it's fair to say that food service refrigeration is far more regulated now than other product categories that you find in a kitchen from an energy point of view. And I'm thinking here of the minimum energy performance standards that are now in the UK market. What do operators really need to know about that particular area?
I think firstly, refrigeration operates 24/7. So having energy efficient equipment is critical. But I think before we get to that energy efficiency discussion, the product has to work, and it has to store food safely. So you can think of the energy performance standards in two chunks. The first chunk is temperature control. So the fact that a product has got an energy label is the manufacturer's declaration that they've gone through a test program where they put the product in a controlled environment with a simulated food load inside. Okay, and that controlled environment could be 30 degrees or 40 degrees, depending on the specification requirements. Excuse me. It then undergoes rigorous door opening processes to try and simulate a real kitchen. Now, during that whole cycle, it has to maintain the food within certain temperature limits to validate that the food is stored safely. So before we even talk about energy, the product has got to deliver. And that's fundamental for caterers. Then we talk about the energy. Now, the energy grade, it runs from A++ plus to G as a scale, similar to the domestic products that you find in places like Currys, very similar. And really, that energy grade is a combination of the energy consumption of the product during that test, and also the volume of the cabinet. Okay, so that enables us to give this energy on the energy scale. That's really what's happening in the professional food service cabinet arena at the moment, and you'll see all of the websites with food service cabinets displaying an energy grade. And normally, the better the energy grade, the more efficient the appliance. Okay, but what I would say in conjunction with that is just consider that as one part of your purchasing decision. You know, there are other factors at play. So you may want to think about where you're going to put the product. So if you're going to put it next to a grill, now that may be operationally fantastic, but from a refrigeration point of view, you've got the hottest part of the kitchen next to the coldest part of the kitchen. So from a refrigeration point of view, you may want something a bit more heavy duty. Okay, so think about your buying decision as a holistic decision, not just one based on energy, but based on the application as well. Moving on from that, in March we have the implementation of the standard relating to display type products. So this covers things like multi-decks and back bar equipment. So for Foster, that relates then to the Gamco portfolio as well for back bar. So we're working hard on that program right now. But that'll be pretty key that we're ready for compliance. But also, you need to remember that the scheme for back bar may not be the same as the scheme. It's not the same as the scheme for professional service cabinets. In fact, the best in class grade in back bar may not be the same. So an A grade or a C grade in back bar may be the same relatively as an A grade in the food service business. That's just the way the scheme has been structured.
Okay, so you're going to need to take each product type on its own merits, really.
You absolutely do. I mean, even within food service, the best freezer may not necessarily be the same grade as the best chiller. So you need to look at the product you want and then look at the energy grade in that segment. Sure.
Okay. You spoke about you know, there are a lot of different decisions to make when choosing refrigeration, a lot of factors to consider. Clearly price is one of those factors. Where do you stand on the sort of price versus product life cycle debate argument?
I think I'd always say look at the value proposition of what you're trying to buy. Okay, you know, the old adage of, you know, buy cheap, buy twice could come into play. But I think at the same time we are respectful of the fact that, you know, in the current climate, that there isn't so much money in the climate, in the economy at the moment, and people may be tempted to buy at a much lower price and probably have to think more short term. And we fully respect that. Part of that process is why we introduced interest free, just to try and give people a bit more flexibility to have good quality products, but not necessarily take that hit all in one go, and spreading some of those payments out. So we're trying to soften the blow to our customers to make sure that they don't feel that sort of big pain in one hit.
Sure. Okay. There's you know, right now there's you know, understandably a big focus on cleaning and hygiene in hospitality businesses. You know, from a kitchen perspective, what challenges does that present for refrigeration?
Hygiene is something that's always been a real strong priority for most kitchen operators, I think, anyway. I think it'd be doing a real disservice to the guys to say otherwise, because, you know, we find the general standard of hygiene in kitchens really, really good. I think with the pandemic, focusing on touch surfaces and making sure there's a little more attention maybe paid to where people come into contact with equipment is probably necessary, but that's just built on good hygiene standards that we see generally being applied in our industry. I think you know, we do think of product design where, you know, coat interiors and the ability to take parts out and put in dishwashers, for example, where we're trying to just make life a bit easier. And for example, the FlexFlow product, we have a plastic liner that can be taken out and washed, just to make cleaning a bit simpler. And if you make products easy to clean, they're more likely to be cleaned.
Sure.
I think.
Coming on to Foster, you know, as a manufacturer as well, you've got a very long and proud record and tradition in the food service refrigeration sector. You know, how would you summarise Foster's refrigeration range today, and you know, what would you say are the qualities that underpin the brand?
Okay, so my background is in product development, and from that perspective, the range is enormous, because we have to maintain it, look after it, and redesign it, of course. But now, on a serious note, it is comprehensive. It provides we think it provides great value, and it's really targeted at what our customers need. And we very often go through programs where we're looking at how relevant the product is and making sure it is fit for the use by our users. We do engage our design team very closely with our customers, because actually these are the guys that are using our products. And it's very easy to get into the mindset of you think you know, but actually getting aligned with the people who are actually using our product on a day-to-day basis is where you find the pain points. And it's where we really drive our continuous improvement of our products from.
Okay. And just lastly, Chris, can you share any insight to future product development from a Foster perspective, and maybe give us some insight into what the future generally might look like for food service refrigeration?
I can't give away all the trade secrets, okay? But we run innovation programs all the time. We're very fortunate that we've got manufacturing and design capability in all of our plants. So that's in France, in the Netherlands, in the UK, in the US. And we do lots of technology transfer programs to try and make sure we're sharing knowledge and share technology. So I consider that a real asset, but also we're very fortunate to be able to do that. And we invest quite heavily in technology, both in the manufacturing plants to give us great consistency and repeatability of product, but also in the design side. We've gone through a program of extensive implementation of computational fluid dynamics, for example, where we actually model system airflow. So we can test multiple iterations of cabinet airflow before we actually start building products. So it fast tracks our design process. We introduced Stay Clear a while ago to really tackle the service issue of cleaning condensers, which is a real issue in our customer base. So we're constantly looking at small incremental improvements to the product range, and quite often the customers don't necessarily see them, but we like to think they surface in terms of great food quality, great temperature consistency in terms of our products, great energy efficiency. So I'm not sure it answers your question fully, but I hope it gives you some insight into the work we actually do to try and get the best products out.